Okay, welcome. This is an exciting video. Prolific, where mastery meets. I'm still trying to figure out my tagline, what I should say. I'm thinking like where mastery meets reality, or like where creativity meets reality, something like that. It's basically about bending reality and writing books, narratives, storytelling. Where storytelling meets reality. How's that? I like that. Welcome to Prolific, where storytelling meets reality and will teach you how to change your life. Now, today, I want to talk about 3 things that are holding you back from getting what you want. Now, these 3 things are so common. I see them in nearly all my clients to differing levels and higher degrees. Some suffer from one more than the other, but I generally see all 3. And I can say effectively, I don't think I was able to build anything and really finishing my first book and building a business and making money, living on my own, doing my own thing, until I was able to really get a handle on these 3. And I'm not going to pretend that I don't have residue of this stuff still inside of me. I don't know if you can ever fully get rid of it. Actually, that's a lie. I do believe you can, and because I've definitely been in that place. But yeah, I think these are the 3 most persistent patterns I notice that keep people from finishing their book. I know as a matter of fact, it's probably what's holding you back. So I don't want to be too long. I'll be brief. So here, we're going to talk about guilt. We're going to talk about what seeking is, and then we're going to talk about fear. These are the 3 core things. Now, fear, I'm going to start with this core one. The fear is about a fear of being alone, not a fear of being an alien or Elaine, but the fear of being alone. Most people are afraid of being alone because human beings, we grew up with a herd instinct. We basically have looked to the herd and looked to other people to tell us what is good and what we need. The difficulty is in this nowadays is that most people, you got to understand, the collective consciousness for most people, they're just going to pick what is average. But what's average doesn't necessarily mean what's good for you, especially if you're trying to be excellent. If you're trying to be excellent, what's average is going to be damaging for you. So if you want to write a book, become a bestseller, if you want to, make a great film, if you want to make great music, if you want to be great at anything, listening to a bunch of people and going on that journey without them is going to be a prerequisite, because most people aren't trying to do that. And so most people are crippled by this fear of being alone, right? And so this is probably the primary one a lot of people that you know and that you yourself are struggling with, right? But when it's not past that fear of being alone, it builds to this other one where the next issue we have is where we seek validation, which again is kind of like being alone. So it's very funny because there's a lot of people who are very antisocial and they'll be like, I like being alone, right? Where it's not really that they like being alone, they just don't like people. And they don't like people because they have this second trait, which is they're constantly seeking validation from other people. So they try to stay away from other people because they still notice they don't know how to internally validate. They're still always looking for external validation. They're still looking outside for, did I make the right decision? Is this the good thing? And so they never feel like they can never fully be themselves when they are around other people. So they avoid other people at all costs because they're terrified of losing their sense of energy. Because validation, when you seek validation through another, you are essentially letting someone's energy permeate your own. And you're saying, hey, I need to know that what I'm doing is right or wrong, and I need you to be this judge of that. It's kind of like the fear of being alone, but it's more insidious, because where the fear of being alone is just about presence and being around people, you can want to be around people but not necessarily care what they think. When you're seeking validation, you care a lot about what people think. You want them to tell you how to live, tell you how to look, tell you how to talk. And without that constant validation feedback, you don't even have a sense of self, right? And so that is where this is coming from, because you don't even have a very developed sense of who you are with or without people. You don't know where you start and where they end, and vice versa. And so this is what's happening when you're seeking validation. And then the last but certainly not the least. It's the most insidious one because it disguises itself. It's guilt, but it disguises itself as empathy. It's not really empathy. It is empathy, but it's empathy being weaponized against you. It's guilt for success. Simple as that. When you feel like you have something, you feel a sense of superiority because you know have more order in your life than somebody else does, right? So this is people who, are on the whole white privilege bandwagon, where it's really just, white superiority, and they're like talking about their privilege. It's really just the sense of racial superiority, and they feel guilt for any level of success that they perceive they have as virtue of, their race or whatever. Or another good example is when you make more money, say, than your friends do, or when you are in a good relationship and the people aren't, you feel guilty for these things, so you begin to sabotage or you hold back from really acknowledging these gifts. Or when you have something that you want but you see others around you don't, you feel guilty for success, because again, it's still, in a way, it's this insidious backdoor way of seeking validation from people because of this fear of being alone. All of these are essentially the same thing, but these are manifesting in different ways. And the core issue here is we have a need for connection, which is one of our 7 core needs, right? We have 7 core needs. And one of our most powerful ones is connection. And because we have this need for connection, we are oftentimes to seek connection at the cost of our own significance, which is another need, and our sense of self. And oftentimes when we are with people who don't love us, which is most people, because most people don't know how to love, and it's based in conditions, and it's based in judgment, and it's based in doing the right things at the right time, or else you won't be loved, or else they won't care about you, or else you are not good enough. When you have this dialogue and these types of interactions going on over and over and over, you basically condition yourself to be guilty of success, constantly seek validation, and the fear of being alone. And then through this conditioning, seeking connection at the sacrifice of your significance, you are now in this cycle, this feedback loop of never being able to fully step into who you need to become, because at some level you're always sabotaging it with one of these core issues. So you might be like, well, Oni, you've told me what's wrong with me. You've told me what's getting in the way. You've said I'm guilty of success and I constantly seek validation and I'm afraid of being alone. So what do I do about it? And it's really simple. It's actually so freakishly simple that you're probably not going to want to do it. Now, for those who are illiterate, and I appreciate you watching my videos, even though you can't read, that's super cool. This says sit in silence. That means no phones, no connections, and do that daily. When you can sit in silence daily, pay attention to the thoughts you have. Pay attention to how you feel. Feelings. Okay, you can do it. And then I want you to name / identify / observe, or watch. I'll say watch because I was already writing it. Observe your thoughts, your feelings. Just name, watch, and identify them. That's it. then very quickly you're going to see a pattern of where a lot of the thoughts and the feelings you have come from. And you're going to notice that they are not you. But what's interesting is once you start figuring out what is not you, something else becomes very clear. You start getting illuminated to this sense of self. You start getting very clear about what is you. You might not be able to fully explore it yet, but when you start figuring out what is not you because you're sitting in silence, very quickly these fears will begin to wipe away. Because you're going to notice that when you're alone and you have your successes, you don't have to feel guilty about people. And then when you learn and you really understand the guilt, you realize how that's been getting in the way because now you can identify it. You'll see how you've been seeking validation, and you'll see where that is coming from. And you'll also see that that is also not you because you are not struggling with that. That is something that's been planted inside of you. And this fear of being alone, well, when you're sitting in silence by yourself, you're going to notice that there's nothing out to get you. There's not this monster that's going to come eat you from the inside out. That you're actually safe. And so what will happen is that when you learn to sit in silence by yourself with your thoughts and your feelings, and if you're a writer, which everybody should be, you should write a book. Join my Skool group to learn more about how to write a book and how to learn more about these life mechanics and how to better your life and your mindset, specifically for any six-figure earners and seven-figure entrepreneurs who are interested in really taking their authorpreneur journey to the next level, or they want to learn more about life mechanics and how to live them. Hit me up in my link down below and apply to work with me. The biggest thing about learning to sit in silence is this sense of self will give you a power that you didn't know you have. Or actually, freakishly, you do know you have it, but you've been scared of it. But this fear of that power will begin to evaporate because you'll see fully that it's not something to be afraid of. I always get paranoid that the video isn't recording sometimes because I can't see the back of my video. So that's really it. This is kind of a short one, guys. There isn't a big deep dive on this one. It's really about just breaking down these three core fears, these three core issues that you have, and they really all have the same solution. Just be willing to sit in silence. You're like, well, that's too hard. And it's like, if sitting in silence with your thoughts and your feelings and naming and identify what you're feeling and what you're thinking is so hard, I don't know if you got it cut out in you to be a writer and to write a whole book and to live the life of your dreams, man. Right? Sounds like you want to be a slave if that's the thought. So once you have all that, write everything down. Just write it down. Write down what you feel, what you observe, and watch what happens. Ask yourself, if it's not me, who did it come from? Where did these thoughts, where did these feelings come from? And just do that for a long time. And then eventually, this fear of being alone, this seeking validation, this guilt of success, this will just vanish because none of this is you. When you came down as a kid, none of this was inside of you. And you're going to find yourself resetting back to that old place. But you're going to deal with a lot of things that you've been packing down. And especially in this day and age where we have our phones and we have people and we have work and all these things that distract us, this can be one of the hardest things to do on a daily basis and to take care of. But this is why meditation is so important, because that's really all you're doing is learning how to meditate. But for most people, it's just sitting in silence and just observing your thoughts and your feelings and then naming them and writing them down, which is just meditation. But we're not going to make a big practice out of it. So anyway, learn how to do this, and then this will take care of itself. It's super simple. Hope that was helpful for you guys. Stay happy, stay healthy, and keep writing. Peace.